This is the KoperCrabb Podcast. Okay, what's going on, guys? This is actually just me today. Chaney is not feeling well at all, and I kind of wanted to just give you guys an update on what has been going on, what happened last week, and anyway, yeah, so we had a pretty bad accident on Thursday night. It's Tuesday now as I'm recording this, Tuesday 7:40 p.m. Some of you guys may have seen that Chaney posted that she broke her nose and she was in the hospital. She had to have surgery on her nose. It was a nasal fracture and some lacerations to her lip. She also slightly chipped one of her teeth, but it was pretty bad, and I'm kind of just going to tell you guys what happened, and that was on Thursday night. So this is about 4 days ago. We were recording the new album. We had just finished a really, really cool part, and we were super excited. And we were thinking, okay, let's go. We wanted to go get some Beyond Burgers from this place that we hadn't tried. And across the street is a brewery. And I'm sure I've been talking about a pretty good amount that, I haven't really been drinking that much. We've been sort of just focusing on being healthy, blah, blah, blah. But we were thinking, hey, let's celebrate and let's go have a beer and a burger. So it was really nice outside, and this was probably in the afternoon, maybe like 4 o'clock. And the path to the burger spot from our house is really nice. So you go through a little beach village and you go up a hill, and it's a really nice ride. So we decided to take our scooters over and do this path, and then we got over there. We had the burgers, and we went across the street and had one beer, and everything was great. I think at that point, if we had have went home, it would have been 100% fine. But we were like, oh, let's have another beer, And I think that's really where we went wrong. We had another beer, and we were feeling a little tipsy, but honestly, I've had 1 or 2 beers and ridden my scooter, and it's been no problem. But honestly, the plan was to just go have 1 beer, 1 burger, go home and keep recording. So we're riding home, and we're going through this little beach village that I had mentioned before, and it was about sunset at that point. And now this one bar there, you can get a drink and sit like right on the beach. And so I was thinking, hey, we're like, let's go in there and, have 1 drink before we go home, watch the sunset. Then, we sit in there for a while, and it gets dark, and, we haven't really been drinking very much. And at this point, we're pretty tipsy. We've had 3 drinks apiece. And, at that point, we should not have been riding on our fucking scooters, and it was, it really devastates me that we didn't just say, hey, let's just push the scooters home. But instead of that, there was actually a band playing next door, and we're like, whoa, there's a band playing. Let's go in here now. So we go in there, we hear the band play. I think we had 1 more drink each, so we've had 4 drinks at this point. And at that point, it was late. It was probably 10:30, 11. And I didn't really feel like I was too drunk, but I was. I was drunk. Chaney was drunk too. She had as many as me, and she's probably 50 or 60 pounds lighter than me. And so this is about 1 mile from the house. And I'm like, okay, well, let's go home. We get on our scooters and we're riding home. Everything is fine. Now, at this point, Chaney goes down a street that's not our street. I don't, in hindsight, I don't really even know why she did that, but she went down the street. So I turn around and I go to follow her just to see what she's doing. And like in slow motion, in real time, I'm like, am I like crashing right now? And, as you can see, I have a bunch of road rash on me. If you're just listening, my hand's got some road rash on it. I really hurt my thumb. My head has some road rash on it. My legs do as well. And I was wearing sandals, so my foot has some scabs on it and stuff. And, I'm like sliding on the pavement, and, I get up and I'm like, yo, Chaney, I just fucking wiped out really bad. Like, we need to go home. This sucks. And she's like, oh yeah, I kind of just crashed over here in this driveway. But she looked totally fine. Like at that point, it was okay. And so at that point, we were really close to home. We were probably a half mile away. And I could have, if I was in my right state of mind, I would have just said, hey, I just crashed. Like, let's just push the scooters home. Let's just walk home and get home safely. But, I wasn't thinking that. And I was just sort of thinking like, the bad thing that happened was I crashed. That sucked. So let's go home. And so usually when we ride our scooters, I'll ride a little bit ahead of her and she follows me. Now we're going home, and this is like, it's probably from where I crashed to riding home is maybe 3 minutes of a scooter ride, maybe 3 to 5 minutes tops. And I get home, and like 1 minute goes by and Chaney's not behind me. And so I'm like, that's kind of weird. And then I think I probably waited like 1 or 2 minutes, and I get back on my scooter and I go back down the road, and it's dark at this point. It's probably 11:30. And I'm just like looking all over for her and I can't find her. And I'm looking like, I scooter back to where I fell. I scooter like through some side streets. I go back to the bar that we were at because, like I said, this is like really close to home. It's really not that far. And I just could not find her. And I went back home thinking, okay, maybe when I get back, she'll be there. Like she went some other way, or maybe she sat down for a second and just didn't tell me. Like, it's not completely out of the ordinary for her to go do something and not like let me know. Like if she wanted to sit down, she might have done that. I mean, at that point, that's what I was thinking. I wasn't like freaking out, but when I got back, she wasn't there. And then I went on my scooter again, and I started just going everywhere. I grabbed my flashlight and I was like looking in all the bushes and looking like there's a school nearby. So I was going through the school. I was just like, where is she? And then so I circled around, went back to the bar, got back home, and she wasn't there. Now, I just kept doing this for, I'd say like about 6 loops is how many times I did this. And on like the final one, I just started like freaking out, and I was just scootering down the street, like just screaming her name, just Chaney, where are you? Panicking. And when I got back, I was like, okay, maybe she got freaking kidnapped. Because I'm looking in all the bushes, I'm looking everywhere, and I'm like, okay, I gotta call the cops. So I call. There's a police station right where we were hanging out. It's probably maybe 2 blocks away. So I call them, and it puts me through to a police officer who's on duty, and I think it puts me straight through to his cell phone, because I don't know, I didn't want to call 911. I preferred to call directly to the Capitola police department. And I'm like freaking out, I'm crying and stuff, and he's like, all right, dude, you need to get a hold of yourself, be strong, tell me what happened. And I'm like, okay, I gave him the whole story. Hey, I was down there with my girlfriend, we were scootering home, she isn't with me now. you know, and I'm freaked the fuck out. I don't know what to do. And so he's like, okay, hang up and text me a picture of her. And so at that point, I was like, no problem. I got a bunch of pictures. We were hanging out all night. We were fucking around on my phone. We were posting tons of stories and stuff, and we were having like a really good time. And I realized that I had explained to him that she was wearing a black jacket, but she was actually wearing a brown one. And so right after I text the picture, she comes home, and her face is completely busted open, and there's blood going down her face. The scooter is wrecked, and I'm like, oh my God, like, dude, Chaney, where were you? Like, I've been looking for you for 2 hours. And I was honestly, even though she was in like a horrible state, I was at that point in time relieved to see her. I was like, she's back. Like, she's not kidnapped. She, you know, it became pretty clear that she fell. And what ended up happening, she was like, I was passed out in the bushes right next door. And now those bushes are sort of the area that she was in. It was like leaves, and it was brown, and she was wearing a long brown coat. And I think since it was so close to the house, I just didn't think to look right next door, you know, so I didn't see her. And so I called the cops back, and I'm like, hey, she just showed up. And he's like, does she need medical attention? I'm like, yes. So the cops come, the paramedics, you know, the ambulance, the whole thing. And, you know, I was feeling like just relieved to see her for sure at that point, because she wasn't dead, and she seemed to be with it. Like, she wasn't, you know, she knew who she was and where she lived and all that stuff. And so they take her to the hospital, and they're like, hey, since COVID, you know, you can't come. And it's like 2:30 a.m. or whatever. I'm supposed to work the next day. Obviously, that's, you know, not going to happen. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I'll just take an Uber. And I took the Uber over, and the Uber driver's kind of consoling me, because I'm like a total mess at this point. You know, you think that you're like, you know, everyone thinks they're this strong person or whatever, and you can deal with this. Not like, you're not. You know, you're really not, when you get put in a circumstance that someone that you love is injured or not near you, and you don't know where they are. Like, you are just like a baby. You're nothing. And that's what I felt. And I was really messed up about it, not to mention how guilty I felt for not just saying after I crashed, like, hey, Chaney, let's push the scooters home. You know, it still boggles my mind that I didn't do that. And, you know, I think of myself as a caring person and all this, and like, I just keeps going through my mind, like, how could I not say, I just crashed. You definitely shouldn't be scootering. Let's push these things home. But anyways, so I'm telling that to the Uber driver, you know, and he's, and I was crying a bit, and he was like, hey man, you know, it's cool that she has someone that loves her so much, you know. And so that kind of made me feel a little bit better that he said that. And I get to the hospital, you know, and I'm like, hey, you know, I'm here to see Chaney, a patient. She's just came in through the ER. And they're like, yeah, it's the whole COVID protocol. So I'm basically I'm just outside. They have like a little tent set up. I'm just out there, and I just sat out there until about 5:30. A nurse came out, and it looks like she was just on a break or something. And she was like, oh, are you Navene? And I'm like, yeah. And she was like, oh, okay. You know, someone should have came out here and told you that Chaney's, like, she needs to see the plastic surgeon, because the surgeon on duty is not gonna doesn't want to fuck with that, basically, because her nose was pretty damaged and she had, like I said, some cuts to her lips and everything, and it looked bad because she also had like, you know, dirt and stuff all over her side of her face, and anyway, he didn't want to deal with it, so they're like, okay, well, she'll be here until tomorrow when we can get a plastic surgeon in here, and you know, you could just come back tomorrow or just call. You know, they're real like vague at the hospitals. I'll just call back, you know, whatever, as if I'm gonna do that. You know, it's okay, whatever. I'll just let me know when she's ready. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't think so. So I go to get an Uber home. There isn't any. It's like 5:30 a.m. Santa Cruz is a pretty small town, so I'm just like, whatever. I'm just gonna walk a shame home, and I just walked, and it was like light outside by that point, and I slept for a few hours, and then I wanted to go back to the hospital because she didn't have her phone, and I wanted her to at least be able to contact people or talk to me and let me know what's going on. So I go over there and give her her phone, and then we were communicating a bit, and then my mom and I decided, okay, let's just go over to the hospital and just be outside and just be like, hey, Chaney, we're outside, you know, make you feel good. Because at that point, she had been there for quite some time. I mean, it was already the next day. It was like 6 or 7 o'clock. And I was texting her, and I was outside the hospital, and I just stayed out there until like 10, and then my mom wanted to go home, so I took my mom home, and then Chaney went into surgery at about 10:30, I think. And then I fell asleep in my car. You know, I was pretty exhausted at that point, and I woke up and it was 1 a.m. and I didn't hear anything. So I tried to call her phone, tried to text it, nothing. I called the hospital, but they're like, they don't know anything. They were like, oh yeah, I don't know, she's not here, you know, that type of a thing. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Then a nurse calls me from her phone and says, Chaney's here, you know, the best thing you want to hear, surgery went great. So I'm like, okay, that's freaking awesome. And yeah, it was about 1:30, maybe 2 a.m. They, you know, gave her to me. Her face was, I mean, her right eye was like swollen shut. It had so much swelling. Her whole face was swollen. It was bandaged. She had dried blood everywhere. I mean, really not good. Just really not good. And I brought her home, put her in bed, and you know, I was kind of just like, all right, well, you know, it's gonna be all right. And I had to give her I have to give her antibiotics and put Neosporin on her cuts and everything like every few hours. So I'm doing a lot of stuff, and then I'm just like, hey, you know, tomorrow is gonna be rough. You know, tomorrow's gonna be definitely the worst day, because at this point they had her on morphine right when she got out of the surgery. So I'm like, hey, you know, tomorrow morphine's gonna wear off. It's gonna be fucking shitty. But let's just get through the next day or two. And so that was, yeah, late Friday night that I got her. So Saturday, sure enough, she wakes up, it fucking sucks. Her face is all fucked up. She had a bunch of scabs on her mouth, so it was like hard for her to open her mouth to eat. So she really hasn't still eaten that much. I've been thinking of creative ways to feed her. So I like made today like a huge protein shake with like peanut butter and oats in it and put it in a squeeze bottle. I figured out that like even for her to drink was kind of hard. So I went and got these like ketchup and mustard squeeze bottles. And I've just been like squeezing Gatorade and water like into her mouth. I mean, and then I figured out that we were watching like a cooking show, and they were using like icing, and I was like, oh, I could put like mashed potatoes in a Ziploc bag and like cut the corner off like it's icing and just like squeeze it into her mouth. So I've been trying to think of creative ways to feed her, and that's been tough. but I've been with her every day. So today is day 4, and she's actually doing really good today. It's the first day that she was allowed to like take a shower and clean her face off a little bit. So a lot of the dried blood came off. Um, she's looking a lot better. She's actually in the other room right now with my mom. They're just like watching TV and stuff. And her mom's gonna fly in from Iowa, which I'm actually going to get her like in a couple minutes. But I wanted to just say, hey, let's not do the podcast this week. I think we got a pretty good excuse. But Chaney asked me, hey, can you at least just check in and tell everybody what happened? And I was like, yeah, of course. So that's been what's going on. It's going to delay things with the album and stuff a little bit for sure. But like I said, even just 4 days after this crash, like she's looks way better. Like all the swelling's gone down around her eyes and nose for the most part. So it's going really, really well. I have a feeling that in about a week she'll be back to ripping, up and about and everything. But she'll still have to deal with some healing for sure. But yeah, basically, all I want to say is don't drink, which I'm thinking that I'm never going to do again, obviously. And yeah, don't take things for granted. And the only thing that I can come away with this is if, this has already happened. The bad thing has happened. There's nothing that I can do about it now. And I feel obviously freaking terrible about it. But if I can somehow use that to be a better person in some way, then it wasn't a complete waste. And I think that's what the only thing that we can do in these situations is how are we going to use it to grow or to expand our consciousness a little bit and move in the right direction. And for me, I've the last 3 days, obviously it's been pretty serious, somber, and I've just been thinking like, how much should I take for granted? And a lot of people don't get a second chance. Chaney could have died. She could have had a concussion, which she did, but she could have had a concussion, I don't know, choked on vomit. She could have been brain dead. So many things could have happened, and they didn't. It's everything that happened to her is skin deep. And I feel like I do have a second chance to somehow be better than how I was being. And now I feel such a strong, not urgency, but just no doubt in my mind that I am going to be a better person. I am going to be more patient. I am going to stick away from toxic shit. And if that's the push that I needed to go there, then so be it. It's already happened. Nothing I can do about it. But anyway, thanks a lot for listening, you guys. We will be back next week, and Chaney can tell you how she's feeling herself. And yeah, thanks for all the support. I guess this has been probably by far the most depressing episode that we've ever had. But thanks for bearing with us, you guys. We'll see you next week.